Hello from ABA Tech Show in Chicago, Illinois. This is Bob Ambrogi.
And Charley Moore.
And we're on the road with the Legal Talk Network. So, Charley, you just gave part of a keynote presentation today at ABA Tech Show where we are.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
It was a lot of fun. It was a really interesting panel because we had the CEOs of Avvo, of LegalZoom, and you of Rocket Lawyer. So tell me a little bit first, just for any listeners who, if there's possibly a listener to this who doesn't know what Rocket Lawyer is,
yeah.
Just give us the 60 second. What is Rocket Lawyer?
Yeah, so Rocket Lawyer is just the easiest way to get legal stuff done, period. And so we help millions of folks to incorporate their companies, create legal contracts, sign them electronically. And really importantly, and one of the things I'm so excited about here, is we help people to get legal advice from attorneys through, again, what I think is just very much one of the easiest on-ramps to legal services ever, which is if you can type on your phone or your computer a 600-character question, the same way you tweet or post something on Facebook, then you can ask a lawyer a question, Rocket Lawyer, and you can start down the path of getting affordable legal care.
You know, I think a lot of the lawyers that I talked to, I talked to a lot of solo, small firm lawyers around the country, and this came up during the show that you did. Judy Perry Martinez, who led the ABA Future Commission, she moderated this keynote that you did today, and she asked, I think what the way she put it is, should lawyers view you as an opportunity or a threat, perhaps? And I think a lot of lawyers don't understand that you are actually connecting consumers to lawyers. I think they think of you as a document company, perhaps, or something like that.
Yeah.
How has that evolution happened? How have you gotten to that point?
Well, it's we also talked about the company's been around now for about 8.5 years, and it's fun to be back here in Chicago at TECHSHOW. Never expected to be the keynote, one of the keynote speakers. Again, joined by other startups. And now here we are 8.5 years later, and Rocket Lawyer has upwards of 16 million registered users, creating 30 million plus legal documents a year. And so we are a legal documents company, but thousands of those users are lawyers who create legal documents on Rocket Lawyer. And then really importantly, we called it Rocket Lawyer 8.5 years ago for a reason, because the business is based on a patented invention, and the key part of that patent that was issued in 2012 is connecting people with lawyers to help them review those documents and then to actually help them to resolve disputes. And so from literally the day that the business was founded, it was founded on an invention that was about making it more affordable and simpler for people to connect with lawyers.
You talked a little bit about why you started the company, and you've just alluded to this, and a lot of discussion on the panel today about what these three companies who were on the panel are doing to help, perhaps what's talked about a lot as the justice gap in this country.
Yeah.
Talk to me about how you view that, what your company's role is in addressing that issue of access to legal services.
Yeah, so that's a great point, and part of what we talked a lot about on the panel is that we really got to is how companies like Rocket Lawyer, LegalZoom, Avvo are increasing the market for legal services. The data point for us is that the majority of the users who use Rocket Lawyer to connect with attorneys have never even hired a lawyer before. So they were out of the market. The folks that are creating those legal documents, usually with the assistance of a lawyer, those folks that are creating legal documents on Rocket Lawyer, they wouldn't have documented what they're doing otherwise. They would have been on a handshake, or they just would have been out of the system because they couldn't afford it. And they didn't even know before the internet, and they could do a little bit of research. They even know that a lot of this stuff existed. And lots of companies still, there's 30 million or so small businesses in the United States. Most of them don't have employee handbooks. It's just a key fact. And if you don't have an employee handbook, it exposes you to all sorts of potential liability. They're mandatory in most states when you have more than 50 employees. And so it just compliance wasn't happening. Lots of legal work was sort of lying fallow and not being tended to until you had platforms like this available to people.
Part of the problem over the years has also been perhaps understanding of when something is in fact a legal problem, or when in fact something is a problem that needs legal help of some kind. Are you doing anything about trying to help the public or help businesses better understand when they have a legal problem and how to address it?
Absolutely. We help people to get consultations with lawyers, and that's exactly what lawyers do. They spot the issues. And so, the way that panel ended today, I thought was pretty darn inspiring when the ABA folks talked about these cuts in legal aid, cuts to the Legal Services Corporation, and if you don't live in if you can't afford a lawyer, you don't live in a democracy. And so providing access to attorneys who can then do exactly what you said, that is the bread and butter of what we do, and making it possible for somebody to be in any sort of situation and just make their problem our problem with that 600-character question and know that they're going to get an answer back from a lawyer to get them started, I think is something I'm quite proud of. And other services like this that really can be an on-ramp for people really do start to resolve some of that justice gap.
And what you're alluding to is that you and the other companies have all said you're signing on to a letter, I guess, to the Trump administration or to Washington, opposing cuts in the Legal Services Corporation and legal aid. Is that, did I get that right? Is that?
Yeah, this is cornerstone foundational stuff. It's interesting in our democracy right now. We have a number of sort of constitutional questions that are being bandied about through the system. So it's actually quite an interesting time, and I may be going a little more galactic and macro. But we also signed on as one of the companies in the amicus brief that was filed, and that we just successfully won in Hawaii. So won the case against the immigration ban. So lawyers are bedrock to a democracy. Access to lawyers means access to justice, and so it's going to be interesting, Bob, to see, and it's really fun to see, as I said, the way our panel ended, because it did end on that high note that we're actually all on the same team.
Right.
We want Americans to be able to be represented, to be able to exercise their legal rights, regardless of their income. And there's a donut hole, just like in healthcare, in the middle. And now with the LSC cuts, there might even be, I don't know what you call it if the donut's like already chewed up on one side, because you're now eliminating the ability to pay safety net that some people could afford.
Yeah.
So we were typically attacking that middle class, legal services too expensive for middle class, and they were trying to do some things with legal aid. But now, I was talking to somebody, and I'll stop, but I was talking to somebody from legal aid in Florida who said her budget could be cut by as much as 50% if the LSC cuts take place.
Yeah, it's scary times. It seems that we can't, a lawyers conference can't manage to get through a discussion about your company or LegalZoom without talking about regulation and how, the regulation of the practice of law and of legal practice more broadly, how your company should sort of fit within that scheme. You had an interesting perspective on that today that perhaps differed a little bit from some of the other panelists. Do you want to talk about how you view regulation vis-a-vis your company?
Sure. Well, I'm a recovering high-priced lawyer and also, I guess, maybe a not reconstructed regulator myself, given that I spent some time at the SEC very early in my career. And so having worked at a regulator, and having, I guess, made friends with some regulators early in life.
Some of my best friends are regulators.
Look, that's another important part of democracy. And in fact, I wrote a piece in Legal Tech a couple of years ago about being able to drive innovation by being compliant and in a compliant way. And so I don't personally think that innovators always have to, be disruptors. They can be revolutionaries, and in being a revolutionary, then something new has to replace it. But the core things of protecting the public interest, ethics, that came up at the panel as well. Look, those are principles that do apply, and there should be regulation, and part of our mission is to help businesses and individuals comply with the rules and play by the rules, and so we should as well.
I mean, something I've heard some lawyers say is that a business such as yours is sort of an end run around the inability of companies, non-lawyers, to invest in law firms. That effectively you're a law firm, or you're a legal services deliverer, and you're being able to get private capital. How do you view that? Do you think that there should be loosening of the regulations around investment in private companies, non-lawyers investing in the practice of law in legal providers, or how do you where do you fall in that?
We haven't really taken a position on that. Certainly, Rocket Lawyer is not a law firm, and it has no plans to be a law firm. Now, that's also, I think, slightly different than what you heard from some others on the panel. But here, we're not a law firm. We don't have any plans to be a law firm, including in the UK market, where we could do an alternative business structure. We haven't done that. We've maintained the same business model in Europe that we have had in the United States, and I think that business model works just fine.
Well, Charley Moore, thanks a lot for being with us. I think we've reached the end of the road for today's episode. Really a pleasure to talk to you.
Bob, thank you. It's fun.
And I want to, again, thanks Charley Moore for joining us today. I also want to thank our listeners for tuning in. If you like what you heard today, please rate us on iTunes. We'll see you next time for another episode of On the Road with the Legal Talk Network.
That was fun.
If you'd like more information about what you've heard today, please visit LegalTalkNetwork.com. Subscribe via iTunes and RSS. Find us on Twitter and Facebook, or download our free Legal Talk Network app in Google Play and iTunes. The views expressed by the participants of this program are their own and do not represent the views of, nor are they endorsed by, Legal Talk Network, its officers, directors, employees, agents, representatives, shareholders, and subsidiaries. None of the content should be considered legal advice. As always, consult a lawyer.